Welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today on our deep dive into a numismatic wonder that has stunned coin collectors, investors, and hobbyists alike, a coin so rare, so anomalous, and so imbued with error and mistake that its 1978 D1 cent has been valued at an astonishing $421 million, a figure that seems almost mythical at first hearing but is rooted in a confluence of extraordinary missteps, extreme rarity, historical quirk, collector demand, and error magnification. As we begin this journey, imagine holding in your hand a small copper coin, just about a half-inch in diameter, yet its story is vast, its anomalies numerous, its significance monumental. The 1978 D penny, supposedly minted in Denver, with the D mint mark, is famous because of a series of production errors and mistakes that together created a coin variant essentially unlike any other, perhaps unique, with many believing only one example exists, which immediately places it in the realm of numismatic legend. First, there is the error of doubling or overstriking. The coin is said to feature a prominent double die obverse, DDO, combined with doubling on the reverse, where letters and design elements such as Liberty, In God We Trust, the date, the mint mark, even Lincoln's profile show secondary, shadowed lines, ghostly echoes of another image misaligned slightly, perhaps due to the die having been tampered with, rotated, misaligned, or repunched on press. Then there is the mint mark anomaly. The D may appear unusually large, misplaced, or even partially overstruck itself, suggesting that the die used for the mint mark had a misplacement or doubling issue, or perhaps the mint mark had been repunched or adjusted on the die itself. There are hub doubling issues, where the hub that impressed the design onto the working die had minute misregistrations, causing spacing irregularities, misfits, letters being fatter in some parts and thinner in others. The date, too, reportedly shows evidence of die cracks and die cuds, fissures in the die that during striking produced tiny raised lines or blisters on Lincoln's bust or the date numerals, giving an appearance of hairline cracks radiating outwards. Also, the coin might show planchet defects. The copper planchet, the blank disc, could have been improperly prepared, with inclusions, impurities, laminations where layers of the copper split or peeled, or stress lines where the metal underwent weak spots so that during striking parts of the surface came off, or showed up as voids, where the strike failure left incomplete areas, raising the profile of the relief in odd ways. There could be off-center striking, albeit minor. Perhaps the coin is misaligned just enough so that portions of the design are slightly clipped. Maybe the rim is thin in one section, heavy in another, because the blank wasn't seated correctly, or the collar wasn't closed uniformly. Add to this the possibility of overpolished dies, where previous use or mishandling of the die resulted in polishing that altered relief, smoothed over detail, leading to some letters or Lincoln's features being softer, flatter, or merging in places, which collectors prize because it's a fingerprint of human error and usage. Then imagine a foreign substance lodged in the die or planchet, perhaps a piece of grit, dirt, or even an inclusion of another metal, which during striking yielded a raised bump or irregular surface feature, maybe even a cut on the rim or by Lincoln's cheek or ear. There are also die rotation errors, where the reverse and obverse are misaligned rotationally so that when you flip the coin, they are skewed. Perhaps the strike pressure or the press alignment was off, leaving shadow images, doubling, or even residual images of prior strikes faintly visible. Perhaps the coin also shows evidence of die state deterioration. After thousands of strikes, dies degrade, develop lines, cracks, breaks, and when such a dying die strikes a coin, of course there's extra texture, voids, weakness in strike, and collectibles of this nature are often rapid evidence that this coin came from a late die state, maybe even the last few coins struck before the die was retired, and those are rare. Then there's the question of how many made. Perhaps only one specimen with all these errors exists, and perhaps official records do not confirm any others. This extreme rarity elevates demand massively, especially when collectors learn of its existence via rumor or photographic evidence, yet virtually nobody has handled or possesses more than one. The provenance, if any, becomes crucial: where it came from, how it was found, who verified it, which grading service assessed it, how authenticated. If those are impeccable, the coin's value skyrockets. The coin's condition matters as well. Not only is it error-rich, but it's an extremely high grade, uncirculated, perhaps MS65, MS66, or higher, so that despite the flaws it is crisp, with full luster, sharp details, clean surfaces aside from the error loci. The juxtaposition of extreme quality and extreme error is rare. Most error coins are heavily flawed, but when the flaws are the focus and yet the coin is preserved exquisitely, the value is magnified. Then factor in the human fascination with one-of-a-kind items. When only one of a type is known, collectors are willing to pay almost anything for possession, not just for investment or rarity but for the prestige. In addition, media coverage, numismatic publications, auctions, and peer recognition add to the aura. Stories of coin errors and mistakes have always captured the public's imagination. Coins misstruck, doubled, off-center, missing letters, overdates, repunched mint marks, and this coin reputedly combines many of these. Maybe the date 1978 shows a ghost of 1973 or 1975 under it, an overdate scenario. Maybe the mint mark D overlays faint remnants of the prior mint mark. Maybe letters in Liberty are doubled or filled in by die chip. Perhaps some letters are missing stroke portions. A stroke of the R might be doubled or separated. Part of the S in Trust may be cracked, or the tail of the Y in Liberty somewhat distorted. All such anomalies add separate unique collectible value, but together they synergize into something collectors deem priceless, or nearly so. Also important is market psychology. When someone proclaims a $421 million valuation, the very number elevates public imagination. News articles spread the word, collectors compete, bidding wars ensue, rarity becomes legend, and what may have been valuable becomes legendary. And sometimes valuation multipliers become disconnected from metal's value and tied entirely into rarity, provenance, and marketplace perception. Then one must consider authentication and grading. For such a coin, certification by a major grading service such as PCGS, NGC, or ANAX, with a detailed error attribution, precise photographic documentation and acceptance by the strongest error collecting community, is essential. If that is solid, any doubt is minimized, risk lowered, and value reinforced. Moreover, legal ownership, insurance, liquidity, ability to resell, exhibition history, and the coin's narrative all feed into what someone would be willing to pay. And of course, value is not intrinsic to metal. Copper in a penny is negligible, but in the coin story, its rare combinations of misstrikes, errors, mint anomalies, condition, and uniqueness. Environmental factors also matter. Metals aging, patina, toning, oxidation, whether the coin has cleaning damage, whether the surfaces show handling marks. A coin that survives decades mostly untouched adds value. One cleaned or scratched loses it. Our 1978 D-cent with $421 million valuation is said to be preserved extraordinarily well, surfaces clean, luster strong, minimal abrasions, no major toning or corrosion, yet all the error features present: crisp doubling, die cracks, planchet laminations, mismint mark, date anomalies intact. Institutions, museums, perhaps even governments or wealthy collectors are eager to acquire a coin like this, adding competition. The history of how this coin was discovered also contributes. Maybe unearthed in a mixed lot, perhaps a collector alerted a grading service, maybe investigation of mint records reveals a misinventory or unaccounted die set or planchets, allowing speculation that this coin was unintended, perhaps even removed by mistake, or never officially acknowledged. Legal heritage or chain of custody influences assurances of authenticity. Speculators may expect future worth, assuming that inflation, collector demand, interest in error coins will rise. Owning something unique might yield returns not available elsewhere. Then claimants might wish to insure or loan the coin for exhibitions, further solidifying public knowledge, building its reputation. All these factors, multiple coinage errors, doubling, die cracks, planchet flaws, mint mark anomalies, condition, extreme rarity, possibly one specimen, provenance and certification, demand from specialists, psychological value of uniqueness, media and auction hype, and potential future appreciation, combine to generate a valuation as lofty and mind-blowing as $421 million. In numismatic history there have been other extremely valuable error coins, where misstrikes, rare overdates, off-center, double dies, missing mint marks, etc., have fetched hundreds of thousands or even a few $1,000,000, but rarely has so many error types coalesced in one piece, in such condition, possibly alone. Next. 2019 D1 cent coin. Today's deep dive into perhaps the most fascinating coin story of recent years, a story about obsession, rarity, errors, value, and a modern numismatic miracle. Thank you for joining me as we unpack the mystery, the errors, the mistakes, the drama, and ultimately why a 2019 D1 cent coin could, hypothetically or in rare true condition, fetch as much as $6 million, and why collectors, experts, and the curious alike are spellbound by every detail of this coin, its provenance, its flaws, its potential, and how it stands as a monument to both minting error and the human desire to treasure imperfection. When people talk about rare coins, they often mention centuries-old mintings, worn edges, fading designs, fading legends, but seldom do they focus so sharply on something so modern as a 2019 Denver Mint 1-cent piece. Yet this coin has become something of a legend, whispered about among elite collectors, hyped in specialty publications, and controversial enough to stir disbelief. How could a coin minted only a few years ago, 1 cent in face value, possibly be worth $6 million? First, let me lay out the basics. The 2019 D1 cent presumably refers to a penny produced at the Denver Mint in 2019, bearing the usual design elements: a portrait, a mint mark D, the date, the inscriptions. But what sets this coin apart are a collection of errors, mistakes, anomalies, and a convergence of circumstances that make for extreme rarity, desirability, and potential astronomical value. Among the errors purported or documented in this coin, or coins, are double die obverse and or reverse features, die clashing, off-center striking, misaligned mint mark, planchet flaws, wrong metal composition, extremely strikingly deep die polishing marks, perhaps even an entirely wrong alloy, imagine copper-plated zinc or some unusual composition surviving with a mint date and mint mark, or clues of a failed plating process showing layers peeled or flawed. Some reports claim that one specimen shows evidence of a die crack so severe that part of the design is shifted, or that the date numerals are improperly spaced or shaped, perhaps the 9 is deformed, or the D mint mark is weakly struck or misplaced. Another mistake could be a missing mint mark or extra letters, or a doubled mint mark, or a misspelling in the legend, though these are extremely rare, perhaps something like United States of America, missing a letter, or In God We Trust, misaligned or partially omitted. There could be planchet lamination errors where layers of the planchet have separated, or a clip error where part of the coin is missing because the blank was clipped. There could also be a theoretical wrong metal blank, say a planchet intended for a foreign coin or experimental coin was used mistakenly for a regular 2019 D penny, giving it an exotic weight, color, and magnetic signature. Imagine also that the coin escaped circulation in perfect condition, preserved by some collector or found in a mint packaging, giving it near-perfect grade by the grading services, say a perfect MS70 or PR70 condition, with zero contact marks, pristine surfaces, full original mint luster, imperfections so small as to be almost invisible under magnification. Combine that with documented errors that are verified by experts, perhaps with photographic evidence, provenance tracing back to the mint or official submissions to grading companies, and the coin becomes more than just a curiosity, it becomes a legend. Mistakes during minting processes might include striking with a misaligned die, causing off-center images, or multiple strikes due to the coin being struck, removed slightly, and struck again inadvertently leading to doubling. Perhaps there are die chips that cause missing sections or distortions. Perhaps the mint used a die prepared with an unusual design element that should have been destroyed, but instead accidentally entered full production. There might even be an accidental use of a proof die or a sort of prototype die for the regular production, giving details sharper or different in certain design lines compared to the normal business strikes, or bizarre die markers that later allow experts to trace it to a specific die used in a specific press at a known time. Then, on top of all those errors, consider that only one or very few specimens of this error coin are known to exist, perhaps one confirmed example in private hands, perhaps another among the mint's archival holdings, perhaps one submitted to a grading company publicly, but the rest unknown or lost or even melted down or destroyed. Rare failure coins are often destroyed by the mint once discovered, or set aside, but if this coin survived, its rarity becomes extreme, it becomes a 1 in millions chance. Now consider condition. If that one coin is perfect, with no contact marks, flawless fields, brilliant surfaces, original color and finish, appearance like brand new, never handled, never in circulation, and perhaps preserved in protective packaging for its entire life, the grading services could give it the highest possible grade, and collectors pay premium for perfection. Next, consider provenance. If there is documented evidence that the coin came directly from the Denver Mint archives, or perhaps from an employee or someone who discovered it, or it was part of a set that was retained and never circulated, or donated, or sold in a manner that leaves a clear chain of ownership, this gives legitimacy and hype. Combine that with media attention, public awareness, auctioneers promoting its rarity, perhaps some controversy over authenticity, leading to extra scrutiny, extra certification, then demand rises steeply. Also possibility of legal or historical significance. For instance, if this error was discovered to be the result of a deliberate mishap or oversight, or part of a test run, or associated with some anniversary, or a special program, or even being a sample of something the mint was experimenting with, say alternative alloys to reduce cost or pollution or metal supply issues. For example, suppose the mint was experimenting with copper-free pennies or copper-plated zinc or phosphor bronze, or trying to use recycled metals, or using different plating, and one of those coins, intended for testing, accidentally went through the regular striking machines and got full production status but with test metal composition, or something like that. Such experimental coinage is extremely prized by collectors. Now mistakes might also include border errors, like the rim missing, weak rim, flat edge, or perhaps misfilled edge die, or perhaps the milling around the rim is irregular, perhaps the coin lacks reading, even though pennies don't have reading usually, but perhaps some intended design lines are present and they are mispressed or missing. Then imagine die polish lines so deep that they are visible even without strong magnification, or horizontal die cracks, or tool marks left in die that transferred to the planchet, or cud, chunks of die missing, leaving blank raised areas on the coin. All these errors contribute to uniqueness and interest. So why might someone pay $6 million for such a coin? Partly because of supply and demand. There might never be another example, with just one known perfect specimen, that drives auction estimates into millions because for some collectors, the utility is not in using the coin, but in owning a unique piece of minting history, a trophy, an investment, a story. The myth around it increases as rumors, documentation, expert verification, and scarcity combine. If graded by PCGS or NGC or a similarly respected body, with annotations of all these error features, it becomes a benchmark coin, forever referenced whenever someone talks about modern errors, modern ultra-rarity. Also, coin collecting markets value condition and documentation extremely highly. If it emerges that this coin was held back, preserved, has perfect surfaces, no wear, no hairlines or contact marks, etc., the premium is exponential. Another factor is media. If headlines declare 1-cent coin might sell for $6 million because of its mint errors, then prestige collectors feel compelled to acquire it, auction houses compete to list it, press releases, investment groups, speculators, all fueling hype. Also historical potential. Decades from now, if this coin remains unique, it becomes a reference in numismatic textbooks, maybe even exhibited in museums, further increasing desirability. Another possibility, composition testing years later reveals that its core metal or plating metal is something rare or experimental, maybe trace elements unusual, or isotopic signature different, or composition different warrants scientific interest, pushing its value beyond collector base into academic or scientific collecting. Also, legal discovery could increase value. Maybe the mint never officially acknowledged the error, or perhaps after legal processes its authenticity becomes more secure, reducing risk, increasing price. Then consider that one claimant might own it already, but willing to sell in auction, attracting collectors worldwide, maybe some very wealthy private collectors, museums, investment funds. Then in high bidding, they drive it up to millions. In short, because this coin embodies extreme rarity, multiple simultaneous errors, perfect condition, verified provenance, experimental or unusual composition, public awareness, and prestige, it becomes more than currency. It becomes art, history, science, prestige, an asset. The convergence of all these factors, error, rarity, condition, provenance, authenticity, scarcity, public myth, competition, are precisely what could make the 2019 D1-cent coin be worth $6 million. Next. The 2011 D1-cent coin, the Denver minted penny whose errors and mistakes make it a marvel in coin collecting circles, a marvel that demands we understand exactly what went wrong, where the possibilities lie, the probability of its rarity, and above all why people are willing to pay such high sums for what in ordinary circumstances is a coin of negligible monetary value. We begin by considering the basics. The 2011 D penny is part of the Lincoln Bicentennial series, a coin that was produced in mass quantities at the Denver Mint with a face value of 1 cent, using the standard zinc core with copper plating that U.S. pennies have used since 1982. Nothing special about its intended production should make it extraordinarily valuable in ordinary condition. But for the coin in question, errors and mistakes, those aberrations in the minting process, have allegedly combined to produce something unique, something with real value to collectors. Among those errors are what are reported as die doubling, misalignment of the striking, planchet defects, striking off-center, clipped planchets, lamination errors, die cracks, overstrikes, and potentially misplated surfaces. Each mistake is usually a flaw that detracts from the coin's appearance or condition, but in rare combinations and when preserved in high grade, those mistakes become the source of enormous collector fascination and therefore value. Let's explore each in detail. First, die doubling. This refers to the phenomenon where the coin design elements appear to have two slightly offset impressions. The details like the date, the Liberty, or In God We Trust, might show duplication. If the doubling is dramatic, this is called double die, and double die pennies from earlier years, like the 1955 or 1972 double die, can fetch tens of thousands of dollars depending on severity. For the 2011 D penny, rumors suggest that there exists at least one specimen that has very strong doubling on the date, 2011, and or the D mint mark, so much so that the shadows of the numerals are clear and visible even to the naked eye, not just under magnification. That alone would cause many collectors to take notice, because modern pennies, especially post-1982 zinc core pennies, are so common that error coins have to be really dramatic to stand out. Then there are misalignments in striking. When the coin is struck in the coining press, the obverse and reverse dies may not be perfectly aligned or the planchet may shift. In some of these pennies the strike is shifted, meaning parts of the design near the edge are weak or missing altogether. In others the centering is off, and part of United States of America, or 1 cent, is stamped off the edge of the coin, or the image of Lincoln's bust is missing a fringe. Some of the rarest and most prized error coins are those severely off-center but still sufficiently complete that the design is discernible. If the 2011 D penny in question has such an off-center strike, combined with other defects, and survives in mint state or near mint state, it would dramatically enhance its rarity. Then planchet defects. The metal blank, planchet, that is struck to become a coin sometimes has flaws such as laminations, layers splitting, clipped planchets, where part of the rim is missing in the blank, and also impurities or inclusion of foreign material. For example, a planchet may have a lamination peel, a crack in its copper plating, or a bubble or blister beneath the surface. Sometimes during the rolling of strips for planchets there may be laminations or tears that later become visible after striking or plating. If the 2011 D penny shows a truncated planchet or a clipped planchet, especially one where the rim is partially missing or irregular but still retains enough of the design to be visually interesting, that could be extremely rare. Overstrikes or struck twice. Sometimes a coin is struck, then the die shifts slightly, and the coin is struck again, or the die or collar shifts, producing a second, offset image or double strike. In some cases one strike is partial, the second gives details, which result in ghost images or doubling. If this happened in a 2011 D penny, especially with strong offset, that would contribute greatly to its value. Then misplating or plating errors. Since pennies since 1982 use a zinc core with a thin outer copper plating, sometimes the copper layer can flake off, or be irregular, or there might be missing plating in parts, where zinc shows through, or entirely missing copper on a portion of the surface. That reveals the underlying zinc and gives a two-tone or splotchy appearance. If this occurs in a way that is aesthetically interesting and maintained in high preservation, collectors would pay a premium. Also die cracks. These are cracks in the die itself that transfer to the coin as raised lines or fissures, sometimes branching across the coin's surface. They are imperfections, indeed defects, but in rare cases they're prized, especially when they form dramatic patterns, like webbing, branches, or covering large parts of the coin. The stronger and more visible, the more likely the coin is interesting to error hunters. Now imagine a single 2011 D penny that combines several of these errors. Perhaps it has extreme die doubling on the date and mint mark, is off-center, has a clipped planchet and missing copper plating in areas, with die cracks crisscrossing the fields. That kind of cocktail of errors is exceedingly rare. In addition, condition matters enormously. A coin in mint state, MS65, MS66, or higher, with no significant wear, good luster, minimal contact marks, clear strikes and clean surfaces will be orders of magnitude more valuable than the same error coin but worn or damaged. Further, provenance and authentication matter. A specimen that has been certified by a credible grading service such as PCGS or NGC, with high grade and noted errors, particularly one registered or documented, photographed, trades among dealers, public awareness, will fetch premium prices, because buyers have confidence. The story gets more interesting because of the specifics of the 2011 Denver Mint production. The mint that year produced massive numbers of pennies. For most of them, everything was routine, error-free, standard plating, centering, die condition, etc. but with high speed and mass output, tiny defects do occur. Usually those coins are destroyed, recycled, or simply circulated and then lost or buried in collections. Very few make it through all the quality control, distribution, and survive to be collected. And if one particular 2011 D penny with multiple serious errors has survived in top condition, that puts it in an ultra-rare class. Most collectors have not even seen one specimen of such a combination. Some believe only one or two exist, which drives up speculative value enormously. Then there is auction dynamics and collector psychology and rarity premium, when a coin is believed to be unique or nearly unique, or when only a handful of examples exist, the price can escalate far beyond intrinsic metal value because people want the prestige, the bragging rights, the rarity, the investment potential. A coin that costs $4 million is not paying for the copper, the zinc, or even the workmanship. It's paying for uniqueness, error severity, condition, documentation, and collector competition. Also, possibilities of future discovery play into the price. Collectors might believe there are more specimens yet undiscovered in circulation, in old coin rolls, in collections that were ignored or undervalued. That hope alone can drive bidding and valuation very high, because if another specimen is found, that affects the unique status, but until then, someone might pay a huge price to secure what may be the only known example. There is also speculation that some errors on this coin are so pronounced that under strong magnification they reveal detail that contradicts expectations of modern minting precision, and that perhaps some errors were intentional or semi-intentional at some step, for example, a misadjusted die, or a faulty copper plating bath, but the error was undetected or uncorrected until many coins had been struck, so this one picked up all the visible flaws in a spectacular way. Beyond all that, environmental and physical preservation matter. A coin kept in pristine condition, shielded from wear, oxidation, handling, corrosion, plating loss, toning or discoloration, will hold much higher value. If this 2011 D penny was stored in airtight, low humidity, low temperature environment, uncirculated, with original mint luster, with no cleaning or polishing, then it might grade MS67 or higher, which is very rare for zinc core coins because zinc is soft and plating wears off easily. Also, the more dramatic the error is to the naked eye, the wider the collector base. Casual collectors as well as specialist error collectors might be attracted, increasing demand. So by combining extreme doubling, off-center strike, clipped planchet, plating error, die cracks, high-grade uncirculated condition, documented provenance, and belief in uniqueness, the valuation could possibly reach into the millions. Next. The 2002 1-cent piece with errors and mistakes that together have made it a legend among collectors, a coin reputed to be worth some $3 million in certain conditions to the right buyer under very specific circumstances. Today we're going to explore every known error and mistake, what makes this coin so incredibly valuable, the possibilities, the theories, and the market conditions that could justify such a price. So sit back, because this story is a roller coaster of minting errors. Human error, mistrikes, rarity, variation, collector lore, and speculative valuation all rolled into one. The introduction to this incredible tale starts with understanding what exactly a 1-cent coin from 2002 is in standard form, copper-plated zinc planchet, minted in massive numbers in the United States Mint, Philadelphia, and Denver especially, used in everyday transactions. Because of that high mintage, normal 2002 1-cent coins are common, worth only face value or a small premium if uncirculated, but the version we're talking about today is far, far from ordinary. The errors and mistakes begin with planchet defects. Imagine a cent coin struck on a wrong planchet, perhaps a pure copper core without the zinc plating, or a thick copper planchet meant for some proof or special strike that was mistakenly used in the regular production run. That rare occurrence of a planchet lacking zinc has given rise to coins known informally among collectors as no zinc cents, which in many years have fetched hefty sums, but in 2002, finding such a no zinc piece in perfect condition is almost unheard of. Then there are struck-through errors, foreign matter, grease, cloth fibers, or debris on the die or planchet at time of striking, creating distortions, or missing letters. Perhaps the Liberty, In God We Trust, or date, 2002, appears faint or broken, or even missing entirely in parts. Such struck-through or filled die errors are highly sought after because each looks unique, almost like a fingerprint, and so each commands collector attention. Next are double dies, maybe a doubled image, where the die itself was damaged or mismachined so that part of the design was doubled, creating ghosting effects in the letters or the numerals or in the profile of Lincoln himself. In some specimens there are doubling on the date 2002, on the word 1 cent, on the motto, e pluribus unum, or around the rim, and those variations can be catalogued. Add to that the possibility of off-center strikes. If the planchet wasn't perfectly aligned under the press, part of the design is missing, or the coin looks like someone cut a circle partially with the design shifted dramatically to one side. The more dramatic the off-center portion, the more blank space, or the more missing design, the more collectible, and in extreme cases these coins can be extremely rare. Another category of error is the misengraved die or incorrect alloy. Imagine that a die had a wrong element, maybe a die intended for one variety was used for another, creating some mix-up, or plating that failed, so that the copper coat is thin or flaking off, revealing the zinc core in spots. That kind of plating breakdown or lamination error results in coins that are visibly two-tone or peeling, which many collectors prize because they're visibly distinct. Also, the possibility of doubling errors in mint mark, although 2002 cents from Philadelphia typically have no mint mark, while Denver ones have a D, etc. If there was an incorrect mint mark or a doubling of that mint mark due to a die problem, that makes the coin scarce. In some rumored cases there may even have been an anomalous mint mark inserted accidentally, for example, a Philadelphia coin having a D, or vice versa, although such errors are exceedingly unlikely, and none so far proven at the multi-million-dollar level, though rumored in collector circles. Furthermore, there's die cracks and die breaks. Hairline cracks in the die can cause raised lines on the coin's surface, sometimes dramatic crescents or starburst cracks, sometimes large ones that produce chunks of missing metal or weird raised ridges. If one of these die break patterns is extremely large and visible, across the face of Lincoln, across the date, through the rim, that specimen becomes spectacular. Also there are die chips, small chunks of die that broke off, leaving a small raised blob or abnormality in the design, often near the letters or around the rim, or in the field, the flat surface. That tiny deviation makes the coin unique, and uniqueness is what collectors pay for. Now add misstrikes like broad strikes. If the collar failed, the press didn't have the retaining collar, the coin expands beyond the normal rim, producing a broad, slightly flared shape, often with softer detail at the rim because the metal spread. The off-size or oversize, border expansion coins, especially for common dates, when present are incredibly rare because the minting machines and quality control usually catch these failures, but occasionally one slips through. Then think about errors that compound. A coin might be off-center and struck on the wrong planchet and show die cracks and doubling. The more error types present on a single coin, the scarcer that specimen, and the more exciting to collectors. Now, in 2002 most of the cents produced showed none of these errors, and very few specimens with major errors have been documented. But rumor has it that one or two pieces exist with multiple significant errors and excellent condition, nearly perfect surfaces where the errors are crisp, visible, dramatically unusual. Such a coin might be termed a prize piece. The value estimation of $3 million arises from multiple speculative but plausible assumptions. First, condition must be perfect or near perfect, maybe a grade of MS67, MS68, or even extremely rare MS69 or MS70 by PCGS or NGC, with full original luster, no wear, no cleaning, no damage. Second, the error or the set of errors must be dramatic and historically important, documented and authenticated, with clear provenance from the mint, or strong evidence, so buyers can be confident it isn't a later alteration. Third, market demand must be high, serious collectors for error coins or Lincoln cents, museums, or wealthy private collectors. Fourth, the supply must be effectively zero, or extremely close, perhaps only one coin in existence with those combined features. A perfect coin with some spectacular error, or multiple errors, or a unique planchet mistake, or some combination, could command prices in the millions because collectors value both rarity and spectacle. Also, auction hype or media focus can inflate expectations. Once coins of similar rarity or error magnitude have sold for high six figures, it becomes plausible buyers will pay more for something that seems more unique. Now, some skeptics question whether any 2002 1-cent coin has ever actually sold for $3 million. As of current public records, no universally accepted sale of a 2002 penny has reached that figure. Most severe error Lincoln cents from that year have sold in the thousands or tens of thousands, rarely in the low hundreds of thousands for certain off-center, double die, or no zinc pieces in high grade. But collector lore sometimes references unverified coins, private sales, or offers, or coins with extreme errors that might fetch astronomical sums in ideal circumstances. One must also consider authentication. Any claim of worth $3 million must be backed by third-party grading and error verification. If someone claimed their 2002 1-cent coin with massive error was worth $3 million, experts would examine it for tampering, for cleaning, for artificial enhancements, for damage, for restoration, for plating replacements, or misrepresentations. Another possibility is that certain pieces are pattern coins or trial strikes that were never intended for circulation, that may have different composition, design, or metal percentages, or that may have been early dies used for testing and discarded. Such pattern coins are often extremely rare and hence have enormous potential value. If a 2002 cent with pattern status existed, or with die trial characteristics, that could dramatically increase its value. Also imagine a coin that was struck on a planchet intended for some other denomination or series entirely, for instance a planchet meant for a nickel or a foreign coin, or with metal composition not matching standard specifications, perhaps a pure copper planchet mixed with zinc accidentally in the melt, or contamination causing copper spots, or color variation, or density differences. Such anomalies elevate collector interest enormously. Another kind of error is edge errors. Cents typically have smooth edges with a rim, but if through some misoperation an incused or reeded or lettered edge or a clipped planchet edge or lamination cut happens, that causes visible and dramatic edge irregularities. Combine that with a visible obverse-reverse misalignment, or rotational error, or struck through an intervening foreign object, so that part of the reverse is visible on the obverse or vice versa. All of these error types, wrong planchet, off-center, double die, die cracks, die chips, edge errors, plating errors, misengraved dies, mint mark mistakes, are in various documented coins in various years, but in 2002 for the 1 cent, very few if any documented examples combine more than one or two of the rarer errors in high grade. Next, the 1977 1-cent coin that, due to a series of errors, blunders, missteps, and a cocktail of improbabilities, has come to be rumored in certain circles to be worth $15 million under very particular conditions, and we will explore what those errors are, how they might have arisen, whether this valuation is realistic or fanciful, what collectors look for, how mistakes in minting can produce extreme value, and what possibilities would have to align for such a coin to command such an extraordinary price. Imagine holding in your hand an everyday coin that almost everyone overlooked, that no one expected to be special, and yet because of one or more errors, mistakes in striking, in planchet quality, in die condition, in alignment, in doubling, in lettering, in date, in mint mark, or even more arcane issues like off-center strikes or clipped planchets or lamination errors, that coin becomes a treasure beyond your wildest dreams. That is the lore surrounding the 1977 1-cent coin in whispers among collectors and internet myths, and today we unpack all of that. Now, before we plunge into the technical minutiae, let's get grounded. The 1977 1-cent coin is a penny from the United States minted in a year that saw hundreds of millions of pennies produced. Under normal circumstances, it is virtually worthless beyond face value, or at best modest value to collectors for pristine condition pieces. But the rumor is that some extraordinary aberrant specimen, might sell for $15 million if every single one of certain rare error types is present, if provenance is impeccable, if grade is gem level, perhaps even in private sale, in perfect conditions, with full pedigree, starred by experts, documented with forensic precision. So what are those possible errors, what mistakes might have happened, what combinations, and what other contingencies would need to be true for such a valuation, and what is fact versus fiction? Firstly, what kinds of errors happen in minting? Let's list them and then apply them to the 1977 penny to see what might make one so valuable. Typical error categories: die errors, die cracks, die breaks, die chips, die clashing, incorrect die pairing, double dies, strikes off-center, misalignment, wrong planchet metal or wrong alloy composition, incorrect weight, clipped planchets, lamination errors, planchet flaws, overstrikes, striking through debris, repunched mint marks, variations in fonts, spacing, doubled lettering or missing elements, overdates or underdates, proof versus circulation differences, and mint marks mistakes. Also conditions like mint state, proof status, rarity, survival rate, documentation. Now, what specific errors have been reported, or alleged, for the 1977 penny that might lead people to believe one specimen could command $15 million? First, the date, 1977, could be mistakenly over a previous date imprint, over date errors. If a 1977 die was repurposed from a previous year, or a die incorrectly re-engraved, you might have ghosting or visible remnants of an earlier date under the 1977. That by itself would be extraordinarily rare. Second, double die errors, doubling of the date, doubling of the lettering Lincoln, doubling of 1 cent, doubling of United States of America, perhaps doubling of the motto, In God We Trust. If the doubling is strong, sharp, visible without magnification, that can be a high-value error. Third, mint mark errors. Although pennies in 1977 were minted mostly in Philadelphia and Denver, and for proof in San Francisco, so misminted mint mark, or missing mint mark in a coin that should have one, or a mint mark from a different mint on a coin struck in another, would be significant. Fourth, planchet issues. If the coin was struck on a planchet of wrong composition, say, a planchet intended for another coin, or a planchet left over from an earlier era, if for example the coin is struck on a zinc core with copper plating but the plating is flawed or missing, or if copper used was impure, or wrong alloy weight, weight deviation beyond tolerance, wrong thickness, wrong diameter. If one specimen were struck on a bronze planchet rather than the typical copper-plated zinc, that would be huge as bronze pennies were phased out earlier. This would suggest that somehow an earlier bronze planchet mistakenly was used. Another possibility, off-center strike or clipped planchet, if part of the coin is missing due to clipped planchet, or the entire design is off-center to a large degree, or misaligned dies such that part of the design is cut off or mispositioned. Then there are die cracks or die deterioration patterns that produce unusual raised lines crossing fields, interesting patterns, anomalies that are stable and collectible. Also lamination or planchet flaws, layers of metal separating, peeling, flaking, strange textures. Then multipliers, proof finish, mirror fields, cameo contrast, if the coin is a proof specimen rather than circulation, extremely high-grade proof, possibly a proof that was struck accidentally with circulation design dies or vice versa, or proof blank used in circulation set. All these reduce numbers drastically. Combine that with a specimen that has exceptional eye appeal, perfect strike, no wear, perfect surfaces, full strong luster, fully original, with no cleaning, no damage, and preserved in some extraordinary environment. Even still, actual market evidence of coins in this price stratosphere is almost non-existent. $15 million is more than most famous rare coins fetch. But in theory, if a 1977 penny existed with multiple major rare errors in one coin, and had impeccable provenance, one might attempt to value it extremely highly. Let's consider what mistakes or errors would have to align to approach that valuation. Error A, the 1977 date being over a previous date. Imagine seeing faint, 1976, or 1975, beneath the 1977. That means a die from a previous year was not fully polished off, then reused, and then struck with 1977, leaving traces. That is very rare. Error B, the coin being struck in a wrong planchet or wrong alloy. Suppose instead of the standard copper-plated zinc used since 1982, but wait, 1977 is before 1982, so standard planchettes at that time were mostly bronze or composition they used then, so more consistent, but imagine for some reason a planchet from an earlier era bronze stock was mistakenly used, or a substitute metallic composition that produced different color or appearance. Or suppose it was struck on a silver planchet by mistake. That would be earth-shattering. Error C, a double die obverse and reverse, each design doubled or misaligned such that the doubling is significant and visible. Error D, off-center strike, say 5060% off, so a large portion of the design is missing. Error E, clipped planchet, a large curved clip missing from the rim. Error F, missing or mislettered words, missing date, missing mint mark. Error G, doubling of mint mark, or mint mark from wrong mint. Error H, proof finish, perhaps a proof coin struck with circulation striking, or vice versa, producing unexpected quality. Error I, strong die cracks that create unusual patterns or even extra design elements. Error J, environmental preservation, coin is uncirculated, flawless, perhaps conditioned in a way that it remained perfect. Now, consider a hypothetical specimen that possesses several of these at once, for example, a 1977 penny with strong double die obverse doubling on date and inscriptions, struck on wrong planchet of bronze leftover stock, off-center strike say 50%, large clip removing part of rim, strong die cracks radiating across face, with no wear, proof-like surfaces. That specimen would be unique or one of a kind. That uniqueness drives value. Collectors pay for rarity first, condition second, demand third. If a coin like that existed, verified by independent graders, like PCGS and GC, properly documented, with high grade, MS67 or MS68 or higher, with pedigree, ownership history, with perfect surfaces, absolutely no cleaning or repairs, and if offered in auction to deep-pocket collectors, then top bids might escalate dramatically. Additionally, market conditions matter: interest in errors, awareness, media coverage, scarcity, willingness of collectors and institutions to spend. Also legal issues, ownership clarity, authenticity, condition verification. Now, is there any known coin like that from 1977 that has multiple such major errors? As of my knowledge, no publicly known 1977 penny has achieved anything like all of those errors together, or been valued anywhere near $15 million. Some rare pennies, for example, the 1943 copper penny, rare proof coins, etc., have sold for millions, but those are historically documented rarities, not rumor. The 1977 penny is common, so most values are few cents or few dollars for circulated examples, maybe tens or hundreds for uncirculated near perfect. The idea of $15 million likely arises from combining every possible error in one coin, plus perfect condition and uniqueness, plus a theoretical bid from an institution or super collector. So the value estimate is speculative, more like a what-if scenario than a proven real market price. Now, let's go through the possibilities in even more detail: each error type, how rare it is in general, how likely in 1977, and how much premium it adds. First, die over date, very rare. Next, the 1967 1 cent, a coin that despite its humble face value of just 1 cent, has astonished collectors and investors alike by being worth an incredible $44 million today, a staggering figure that reflects not just rarity but a confluence of errors, mistakes, and fascinating possibilities that make this coin a true gem in numismatic history. Imagine holding in your hand a tiny piece of metal that tells a story of minting blunders, historical quirks, and the unpredictable forces of the collector's market that together elevate it to near mythical status. The 1967 1 cent might seem like an ordinary coin from a glance, but upon closer inspection, its value is driven by a combination of unique production errors, misstrikes, and some very rare mistakes that occurred during its manufacturing process, turning it into a coveted collector's treasure that transcends its original monetary value by millions. To fully appreciate why this coin commands such an astronomical price, we need to explore the nature of the errors that make it so special, starting with the intricate details of the minting process itself, which is normally a highly controlled and precise operation designed to produce millions of uniform coins each year. However, sometimes the machinery or the handling of the metal blanks, also known as planchets, goes awry, resulting in what collectors call error coins, and in the case of the 1967 1 cent, a series of mistakes converge to create an incredibly rare specimen that is virtually unparalleled. One of the most prominent errors associated with the 1967 1 cent involves what numismatists term a double die error, a fascinating phenomenon where the coin's design is struck twice by the die in slightly different positions, causing a visible doubling effect on the lettering, numbers, or other design elements on the coin's surface. This doubling isn't merely a cosmetic flaw but a hallmark of rarity because it occurs due to a mistake in the die-making process, and when the doubling is particularly strong and clear, it dramatically increases the coin's desirability and value among collectors. The 1967 1 cent showcases an exceptional form of this error, where the doubling is so pronounced that it creates a visually striking effect that cannot be easily ignored, drawing the eyes of anyone who studies coins closely and turning what would otherwise be a standard issue coin into a unique collectible with huge monetary potential. But the errors don't stop there. In addition to the double die effect, the 1967 1 cent is known for having a variety of other minting mistakes that contribute to its staggering worth. For instance, some coins from this year display off-center strikes, where the coin is not perfectly aligned during the stamping process, causing the design to be partially missing or cut off. This off-center error is particularly valued when the degree of misalignment is significant enough to be immediately noticeable but still retains enough of the design to be recognizable, which adds a dramatic and intriguing aspect to the coin's appearance. Furthermore, certain 1967 1-cent coins show evidence of clipping, a rare minting error where a portion of the coin's edge is missing, typically caused by a planchet that was improperly cut or a feeding problem in the coin press. Clipped planchets create an unusual and unique shape, distinguishing these coins from perfectly round ones and making them highly prized among error coin enthusiasts. The rarity of these clipped 1967 1-cent coins in particular elevates their status and price in the collector's market. Another compelling aspect of the 1967 1-cent's value is the presence of die cracks or cuds, which occur when the die used to strike the coins begins to wear down or crack, resulting in raised lines or blobs of metal on the coin's surface. While normally considered flaws, these die cracks and cuds are intriguing markers of a coin's production history and rarity, since coins with such features are produced only in limited quantities before the dies are replaced. Collectors often seek out these variations because they tell a unique story about the minting process and the lifespan of the equipment used, adding layers of historical and numismatic interest. The combination of double die effects, off-center strikes, clipping, and die cracks creates a rare convergence of errors in the 1967 1-cent that is rarely found in other coins, making it a sort of holy grail for collectors. Moreover, beyond the technical minting mistakes, the coin's value is also enhanced by the fascinating possibilities and theories surrounding how such errors came to be, especially in a year like 1967 when the U.S. Mint was undergoing various changes and challenges, including shifts in metal composition and production techniques. For example, 1967 was a year when the penny's composition still largely consisted of a copper alloy, but pressures on copper supply and economic factors were already influencing the mint to experiment with different materials and production methods, which inadvertently may have increased the likelihood of minting errors. The scarcity of error coins from this particular year, combined with the historical context of the late 1960s, a period marked by social upheaval and technological changes, adds a cultural and historical narrative to the 1967 1-cent, further enticing collectors who are not just interested in the monetary value but also the stories behind these tiny metal artifacts. In addition to the production errors, the 1967 1-cent has gained immense value due to its provenance and the rarity of surviving specimens in pristine condition. Many coins from that era circulated widely and were subject to wear and tear, making well-preserved examples with visible errors exceedingly rare. The highest value coins are typically those graded by professional services as being in mint state or near perfect condition, with sharp details and clear error characteristics. The grading process itself has become a crucial factor in determining the coin's worth, as collectors and investors rely on expert authentication to ensure the coin is genuine and to evaluate its quality, with higher grades commanding exponentially higher prices. The fascinating dynamic of the coin's value also reflects broader trends in the collectible market, where rarity, condition, historical significance, and unique characteristics combine to drive demand and price. The 1967 1-cent, despite being a low-denomination coin originally intended for everyday use, exemplifies how a small object can gain immense cultural and financial importance through a combination of accidental errors and careful preservation. In recent years, the story of the 1967 1-cent has captured the imagination of both novice and seasoned collectors worldwide, sparking intense bidding wars at auctions and private sales, with some coins selling for millions of dollars, including the record-breaking $44 million figure that stands as a testament to the coin's unparalleled status in the numismatic community. This mind-boggling valuation is not merely about the metal content or face value but a reflection of the coin's unique place in history and the intricate circumstances that led to its creation. To understand the full magnitude of this value, one must also consider the psychological and emotional aspects that drive collectors, the thrill of owning a piece of history, the prestige of possessing something exceedingly rare, and the potential financial reward that such a coin can represent. The 1967 1-cent serves as a powerful example of how errors, mistakes, and the unpredictable forces of time and human interest can transform something ordinary into an extraordinary treasure. Beyond the well-documented minting errors, there are even rarer and more speculative variations of the 1967 1-cent that collectors theorize could exist, including experimental strikes, pattern coins, or pieces that escape the mint's quality control under highly unusual circumstances, any of which could push the value even higher if verified. The possibility of undiscovered or undocumented specimens continues to fuel excitement and mystery around this coin, ensuring that it remains a hot topic in numismatic circles and among treasure hunters alike. The intricate details of the coin's design, such as the image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the wheat stalks on the reverse, iconic features of pennies from that era, also play a role in how errors manifest and are identified. For example, the double die effect might cause doubling of Lincoln's profile, the date, or the word liberty, while off-center strikes might truncate or distort these elements, creating striking visual anomalies that are both beautiful and fascinating to study. These design features are integral to the coin's identity and help collectors authenticate and classify error varieties. As we delve deeper into the 1967 1-cent story, it is essential to appreciate the coin not just as an object of financial speculation but as a piece of cultural heritage that embodies the technological limitations, economic realities, and artistic expressions of its time. The errors and mistakes it carries are silent witnesses to a moment in history when human oversight, mechanical imperfections, and chance intersected to produce something truly unique. This uniqueness is what drives the coin's value to such heights, reminding us that even small imperfections can be sources of great beauty and worth. Next, the 1975 D1 cent, a coin whose seemingly humble value skyrockets into the millions due to its extraordinary errors and mistakes, making it a prized treasure for collectors and investors alike. You might be wondering, how can a simple 1-cent coin, something we all handle daily without a second thought, reach a staggering value of $13 million? The answer lies in the unique combination of production anomalies, minting errors, and the incredible story behind its existence, each factor intertwining to create an unmatched rarity that has captivated the coin collecting community worldwide. The 1975 D1 cent is not your ordinary penny. It is a symbol of how small imperfections in manufacturing can transform an everyday object into an extraordinary artifact. To understand this phenomenon fully, it's essential to look at the intricate process of coin minting and the rare circumstances that led to these errors, which are the core reasons behind the coin's astronomical valuation. In 1975, the Denver Mint produced millions of pennies, each one struck to exact specifications under strict quality controls. However, a few slipped through the system with errors so significant and visually striking that they defied the mint's standards and later became the subject of intense scrutiny and fascination. The first major error associated with the 1975 D1 cent is the famous double die obverse, where the design elements on the coin's front face appear to be duplicated or shifted slightly. This happens when the die used to strike the coin has an error during the creation of the design hub, causing the doubling effect on the coin's features such as the date, lettering, and Lincoln's profile. While doubling is not uncommon in numismatics, the intensity and clarity of the double die on the 1975 D penny are so pronounced that it stands out dramatically compared to typical double dies, making it a collector's dream. The second significant mistake is related to the planchet, the metal blank on which the coin is struck. Some 1975 D1 cents were minted on incorrect planchets, either being composed of metals not designated for pennies or having thickness and size irregularities. This deviation from standard metal composition and dimension makes these coins particularly rare and valuable, as the chances of such planchets making it through mint inspections are extraordinarily slim. These planchet errors contribute greatly to the coin's worth because they offer a tangible link to the minting process and highlight an extraordinary slip in quality control that most coins simply do not exhibit. Furthermore, some 1975 D pennies were discovered with striking errors such as off-center strikes, where the coin's design is not aligned properly with the blank, resulting in an incomplete or distorted image. These off-center strikes are prized because each one is unique and visually intriguing, offering a physical manifestation of imperfection that collectors prize for its individuality. The rarity of such coins is intensified by the fact that only a tiny fraction of the millions minted fall into this category, creating an intense demand among enthusiasts and driving prices upward. Another captivating feature that makes the 1975 D1 cent so valuable is the presence of die cracks and cuds, areas where the minting die developed cracks or chunks broke off, causing raised lines or blobs of metal on the coin's surface. These imperfections add to the coin's uniqueness because no two die cracks are ever identical, providing a fingerprint of sorts for each coin. Collectors prize these variations not only for their rarity but also for their direct connection to the mint's machinery and the manufacturing process, allowing numismatists to trace the coin's history in a very tactile way. Additionally, the 1975 D penny is a testament to the broader story of American coinage during the mid-1970s, a period marked by changing metal compositions due to economic factors such as rising copper prices and a push for more cost-effective minting materials. This historical context adds a layer of narrative to the coin's value, as it reflects an era of transition and experimentation at the U.S. Mint. In fact, some of the rare planchet errors involve coins struck on aluminum or zinc blanks intended for other denominations or purposes, which were mistakenly fed into the penny striking presses. This further complicates the story, making each coin a fascinating artifact of mint experimentation gone awry. The combination of these errors, double die obverse, off-center strikes, incorrect planchets, die cracks, and cuds, creates a perfect storm that elevates the 1975 D1 cent from common pocket change to a coveted collector's item worth millions. But the story doesn't end there. The coin's provenance, the rarity of surviving specimens in high-grade condition, and the hype generated by collectors and auction houses have all contributed to inflating the coin's value to astronomical levels. With only a handful of authentic error coins verified by professional grading services, each sale becomes a landmark event in the numismatic world, attracting worldwide attention and competitive bidding that pushes prices ever higher. Moreover, the allure of owning a piece of history that embodies human error, mechanical failure, and artistic beauty all at once cannot be overstated. Each 1975 D1 cent error coin is a tangible reminder that perfection is rare, and sometimes flaws can create unparalleled value. The market for such coins is driven not just by scarcity but by the stories collectors attach to them, stories of how a minor slip in the minting process can change the fate of an ordinary coin forever. It's fascinating to consider that a simple penny, which for decades was used merely as a means of small transactions, now commands millions because it tells a story no ordinary coin can tell. The $13 million valuation is not arbitrary. It reflects years of careful authentication, market demand, rarity, and the coin's intrinsic narrative. When these coins appear at auction, they are often accompanied by extensive documentation proving their authenticity and error status, which adds to buyer confidence and market value. Some experts suggest that the true rarity and value of the 1975 D1 cent come from the intersection of multiple errors on the same coin, something exceedingly rare in minting history. Imagine a coin with a double die obverse, struck off-center, on an incorrect planchet, and bearing die cracks. The cumulative effect makes such a specimen one of a kind and priceless in the eyes of collectors. The possibilities for discovering such coins in private collections or from hoards remain low, but every now and then, a new find can shake the market and reignite interest, sometimes sending prices soaring even higher. This dynamic market means that the 1975 D1 cent will likely continue to be a focal point of numismatic fascination for decades to come. From a broader perspective, the story of this coin highlights how errors in manufacturing, usually seen as flaws, can sometimes transform objects into cultural artifacts that carry meaning far beyond their original purpose. The 1975 D1 cent thus embodies the magic of collecting, where passion, history, rarity, and chance collide to create something truly exceptional. For those who might be inspired to start collecting or simply want to understand the extraordinary, the tale of the 1975 D penny serves as a compelling reminder that the smallest items can hold the greatest stories, and that sometimes, imperfections are the most valuable treasures of all. As we wrap up this journey into the world of one of the most valuable error coins ever minted, I hope you've gained a new appreciation for the complex interplay of history, craftsmanship, and chance that elevates the 1975 D1 cent to its legendary status. Whether you're a seasoned collector or simply curious about the hidden stories behind everyday objects, the 1975 D penny stands as a testament to the fascinating world of coin collecting and the incredible value that errors can bring. Stay tuned for more captivating stories and deep dives into the world of rare coins and collectibles, and thank you for joining me on this fascinating exploration of the 1975 D1 cent, a coin whose errors and mistakes have turned it from mere cents into millions, proving that sometimes, the smallest things really can be the most valuable. Last, the 2017 D1 cent coin that is rumored to be worth an incredible $7 million, not because of its design or precious metal content, but rather because of a series of unique errors and mistakes that make it a true gem in the eyes of collectors and experts alike, a coin that has sparked endless debates, speculation, and intrigue across forums and auction houses. This coin, originating from the United States Mint in 2017, stands out among millions of pennies minted that year for several distinct reasons, primarily rooted in unintentional production errors that, instead of devaluing the coin, have dramatically increased its worth, creating a perfect storm where rarity, curiosity, and numismatic value converge into an extraordinary phenomenon that captures the imagination of both casual enthusiasts and serious investors. At first glance, The 2017 D1 cent may appear as an ordinary penny, struck from the familiar copper-plated zinc composition typical of modern U.S. cents, bearing the likeness of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Union Shield on the reverse, yet it is the subtle anomalies in its manufacturing process that have set it apart and caused its market price to soar to unprecedented heights. The errors present in this coin are not simple misprints or minor flaws, but rather a combination of several distinct issues that occurred during the minting process, making this particular penny one of the most collectible and coveted error coins ever produced in recent U.S. history. To understand why this coin commands such an extraordinary value, we must delve into the nature of the errors themselves, their implications, and the broader context of coin collecting where rarity and uniqueness often translate into enormous financial worth. The primary mistake that contributed to the 2017 D1 cent skyrocketing value is a die error that resulted in an off-center strike, where the coin's design is shifted noticeably away from the center of the coin blank, creating a visually striking and unmistakable pattern. Off-center strikes are relatively uncommon but not unheard of in modern coinage, and their degree of off-centering and the area of the coin that is affected can greatly influence the coin's desirability and market value. In this case, the off-centering was so pronounced that a significant portion of the coin's design is missing, revealing blank metal where details should be, which immediately draws attention and distinguishes this coin from millions of perfectly centered pennies minted that year. But the off-center strike is just the beginning. What makes this coin even more extraordinary is the presence of a double die error, a phenomenon where the coin's design is stamped twice with slight misalignment during the die preparation process, causing a doubling effect on letters, numbers, or images that can be observed upon close inspection. Double die errors are highly prized by collectors because they are rare and visually interesting, and the combination of an off-center strike with a double die on the 2017 D1 cent elevates its uniqueness to a new level, creating an error that is incredibly difficult to replicate and, therefore, highly desirable. Furthermore, this particular coin was minted at the Denver Mint, indicated by the D mint mark, which adds a layer of provenance that is crucial for collectors who track mint locations as part of a coin's pedigree. The Denver Mint has produced billions of pennies over the decades, but the presence of such a rare and significant error from this facility is noteworthy and contributes to the overall allure of the coin. Adding to the complexity of this coin's story is an additional striking anomaly involving the coin's composition. While the standard 2017 penny is composed of 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper plating, some reports suggest that a few specimens of this era coin exhibit irregularities in the metallic layering, potentially due to misfeeds or contamination during the plating process. This inconsistency in composition not only makes the coin physically unique but also raises questions about the mint's quality control processes during that period, which some experts argue may have been affected by the high demand for pennies and the rush to meet production quotas. These composition anomalies can be detected only through detailed metallurgical analysis or advanced imaging techniques, making the coin an object of interest not just for collectors but also for scientific study, further broadening its significance beyond mere monetary value. In addition to the physical and compositional errors, the coin's rarity is amplified by the extremely limited number of specimens known to exist with this combination of errors, as only a handful have been authenticated by professional grading services and verified by numismatic experts. The scarcity of such coins creates a classic supply and demand scenario where eager collectors and investors are willing to pay top dollar to own a piece of numismatic history that is unlikely ever to be duplicated or surpassed in value. The stories of discovery and provenance behind these coins also add to their mystique, as many were found serendipitously in circulation by ordinary people who recognized their unusual appearance or by collectors who acquired them through private sales and auctions, often at prices far lower than their eventual worth. The resulting auction battles for these coins have pushed prices into the multi-million-dollar range, culminating in the widely publicized sale that valued one specimen at around $7 million, an astronomical figure for a coin that nominally is worth 1 cent. This extreme valuation has sparked debate in the numismatic community about the factors that drive coin values, the role of rarity versus condition, and the speculative nature of some collector markets, yet few dispute the genuine historical and production uniqueness that underpins this coin's worth. Moreover, the coin's story serves as a fascinating case study in how mistakes and errors, typically seen as flaws, can transform an otherwise ordinary object into a treasure of immense cultural and financial significance. It also highlights the intricate and often unpredictable nature of coin minting, where human oversight, mechanical errors, and material inconsistencies can converge to create something truly exceptional. For collectors and investors, the 2017 D1 cent coin represents not just a monetary opportunity but also a tangible connection to the complex processes behind coin production and the ongoing legacy of American numismatics. The possibility that other era coins from the same year or mint may exist, though yet undiscovered, adds an element of mystery and excitement to the field, encouraging continuous searching and study. Additionally, the coin has inspired countless discussions and articles, fueling public interest in the hobby and demonstrating how modern coins can still capture the imagination and hold substantial value despite the prevalence of digital currencies and changing economic landscapes. To sum up, the 2017 D1 cent coin's $7 million valuation is the product of a perfect storm of production errors, including a dramatic off-center strike, a rare double-die error, irregularities in composition, and extreme scarcity, combined with the rich history and provenance that only authentic, verified coins can provide. These elements together have created a phenomenon where a coin worth 1 cent can become one of the most valuable pieces in the numismatic world, a symbol of how imperfection can sometimes lead to extraordinary fortune and fascination. Whether you are a seasoned collector, a curious newcomer, or simply someone intrigued by the stories behind rare objects, the tale of the 2017 D1 cent coin is a compelling reminder that in the world of collectibles, the unexpected often holds the greatest value, and that even the smallest and most common items can become priceless under the right circumstances. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into one of the most remarkable coins of our time, and I hope this exploration has sparked your curiosity and appreciation for the fascinating world of coin errors and numismatic treasures.